Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Frederick Winsness, and I'm with NetHope and the NetHope Solutions Center. I want to welcome everyone to yet another No Loss Generation Tech Task Force webinar. Today is a special day, the day before World Refugee Day, and Leila Toplik will be talking quite a bit more about that in a few minutes. But today we're pleased to have SOS Children's Villages with us and Volunteer Vision. Talk about developing employability skills through remote mentoring. And before we get underway, I'm just going to go over our standard housekeeping rules. Please open up the chat window in WebEx and look at the traffic there. Post your questions there for a Q&A session towards the end of the hour. And we are recording this today, so look for a follow-up mail to both you and everybody that RSVP'd with a link to the Solutions Center webpage for this webinar with recordings and slides and other collateral. You should feel free to share that with colleagues and anybody that you think might be interested in the topic. We are also asking for you to answer a short little survey at the very end of the session today. You will see a survey come up, and if you could take a minute or two to please answer those questions, that will help us improve this webinar series as we go forward. So with that, I quickly want to introduce Leila Toplik. Leila is with NetHope and the No Loss Generation Tech Task Force. You see her picture and her email address there. She's going to be introducing Maria and Julia, who's from SOS Children's Villages and Volunteer Vision, respectively. So over to you, Leila.
Thank you, Frederick, and good morning, good afternoon to all of you. For those of you who are new to the No Loss Generation Tech Task Force and our monthly webinars, welcome. I hope you'll sign up for the task force so you could receive notifications about the future webinars. We're planning a couple of exciting webinars for this summer and fall. So briefly, task force facilitates collaboration between the humanitarian sector, so that's UN and global and local NGOs, and also the private sector, with this particular focus on the tech-enabled programs for conflict-affected children and youth. And while we focus on the needs of children and youth affected by the Syrian and Iraqi crisis, including education, employment, participation, and protection, all resources and all projects are available globally. So do keep that in mind as we go through this webinar. The task force is also open to all global and local NGOs, private sector companies, academic institutions, entrepreneurs, and host governments. And you're seeing some of the logos in this slide. And since we launched it in 2017, over 70 organizations have joined the task force. A couple of things to note: the first phase of engagement is underway. We're focusing on two things in particular. One is building this multi-sector community through information exchange on existing programs and tech solutions, so webinars like this one. And we're also initiating new collaborations or projects to address specific needs and achieve a greater reach and impact. And these are 4 projects that we're currently incubating for all of NLG, so about 30 UN and NGO agencies, and working closely with private sector companies like Microsoft and Salesforce and Adobe and Pluralsight, and also conflict-affected youth. And I won't talk about all of them. I believe Frederick will be sharing the link to the blog post that goes into more information about the approach and the project. I just want to call your attention to the first project because of what we have planned for tomorrow for the World Refugee Day. So this first iteration, or the minimum viable product of the project focused on participation need, was developed in less than 2 months and also made available broadly to all youth ages 13 through 24 in February this year. The Find Without Borders Challenge was designed by Mercy Corps on behalf of all of NLG in partnership with Adobe Project 1324 and also with the support from the NLG Tech Task Force. I'll say a couple of things before I share with you a couple of what we're doing for the World Refugee Day, and where would love to get your support. The Find Without Borders Challenge focuses on the issue of participation. What we heard from the young people and through the research is that they have a limited access to participate in and contribute to their communities, and also to connect with their peers in a positive way. So we worked with Adobe. We leveraged Adobe's Project 1324 platform that engages over 250,000 youth globally to develop the first participatory challenge that was designed by conflict-affected youth and engage them proactively. And the young people decided that they wanted the challenge theme to be about identity. Identity as a way for them, particularly those who are affected by conflicts, to express themselves and also reflect on what it means to them. So this challenge was launched in February at the NLG Tech Summit and ended on June 1st. And for the World Refugee Day, we would like to invite all of you to join us in amplifying the voices of the young creators by doing a couple of things, and we'll be sharing this in the follow-up email that will include the recording of this webinar. One is really to share their work via your social media channels. We have a sample post that we'll send to you in email. You also can share the blog post that Rick put together with the interviews and input from the young people from the region. We've also selected 15 winners of the challenge who are featured on Project 1324 website. And if you're interested in sharing their projects via social media, please do that. And also you have the opportunity to display them on digital displays at your offices and on your campuses, and contact me if you're interested in getting any of the original files or drafting an internal blog to your employees or students if you're a university. And then lastly, take a minute after this webinar to appreciate the work of these young artists on the Project 1324 website. You can create a free login in less than a minute and show these young people that you've actually seen their work and that you appreciate their stories. So I hope you'll join us in amplifying these voices and helping us to ensure that the work that they've done, the reflections that they've shared with all of us are visible. And on this webinar, I am excited to bring to you one of the presentations as promised, and one of the presentations I really enjoyed at the ICT4D conference that was held in Lusaka, Zambia in May, so last month. And then in terms of just this specific presentation, it really touches on one of the challenges that also NLG Tech Task Force is focused on. As many of you know, conflict-affected youth globally, so not just in the MENA region, but globally, have a limited access to skills training resources, to support networks, to role models that can help them prepare for employment. And at the same time, we've heard that employees at companies like Salesforce or DHL and others have the expertise and also have the interest in supporting conflict-affected youth. So similar to the work that we're doing at a task force, specifically the project that's being incubated by UNICEF and Salesforce, other organizations globally are working to connect young people with mentors around the world. And in this webinar, you'll hear about how SOS Children's Villages is working with Volunteer Vision to provide remote mentoring in employability-related skills in collaboration with the employee volunteers from DHL, from Allianz, Credit Suisse, and J&J. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you representatives of SOS Children's Villages and Volunteer Vision, Maria and Julia. And over to you, Maria.
Thank you very much, Leila. So I hope that you can all see the presentation. So as Leila just mentioned, we would like to share with you all a project called YouthLinks, which is about online mentorship. And specifically here, we will focus on the engagement and connection between one mentor and one mentee. This is a joint project between SOS Children Villages and Volunteer Vision with the support of Aflatun, and we will explain in the next slides how this cooperation is working. So Leila already introduced ourselves, but specifically I'm working in SOS Children Villages in the area of ICT for development, which means the integration of ICT into programs. And there we design various programs in order to integrate technology to overcome or cover some of the needs that we have in the different programs that we implement in the ground. Very, very briefly, only to say that SOS Children Villages, it's a global organization which is based in 135 countries. So we are mostly in all the regions. This is the agenda for today. We have, first of all, we would like to start by why are we doing this program. Then we will jump into explaining the program itself and who are the program participants. And we will close talking about the next steps in this program and also the call to action on how we can engage together in this initiative. In order to provide you a little bit with the background on the program and how this was born, we have one of the focus that SOS Children Villages has is to prepare young people for independent living. So we really focused ourselves on providing our young people who are people who have lost parental care or who are at risk of losing parental care, and we support them in order to provide them with the needed tools in order for them to be able to integrate the job market. And this supports the different SDGs that you can see on the slide, and that's why, or that's, let's say, like the framework where this project was born. Why do we do online mentorship, or why do we do mentorship first, and why did we jump it, let's say, to do this part of online mentorship? So the challenge that we had in SOS Children Villages is that only 60% of SOS young people who were living our programs, so once they were jumping into the independent life, only 60% of them were becoming really like self-reliant and independent. And our objective is to increase this percentage by 2030. Our target group, as I mentioned, they are people, young people, children who are living in a very vulnerable context and who have lost parental care or are really at risk of losing parental care and also like family support. And it's proven that the people who are in this kind of contexts and who have like these social backgrounds are in a very vulnerable position to become self-reliant and independent, mainly because they lack of the support networks and family, neighbors around who can support them in making this jump and this step to become independent. We in SOS, we were already implementing several mentorship programs, but we were not able to scale them in all geographies or for like many people because of the geographical barriers and also because of the limited time that mentors were having in order to support the young people. We are not based only in capital cities, for example, or in very big countries, but as I said, we are located in 135 countries. And it was not possible to find mentorship opportunities for many of those countries or people living in many of those countries and also in many of these locations because of the travel distances, infrastructure, and time, mainly like for time that the mentors were willing to commit to support the young people. So that's why we said like why we do not do it digital also. So on the top of also doing it face-to-face for some context to what this is possible, great, we can continue on that line. But why not like we add technology into this program and then scale this kind of support and be able to reach more people in more countries? Especially, as I mentioned before, is that the vulnerable people with whom we work, they really lack of the support networks that they need in order to be inspired or oriented or guided to achieve their future, to become self-reliant, and to join the job market. What happened to us, it was like when we were asking to the people in our target group and in our programs what you would like to do in the future, where would you like to work and your profession to become, they were saying us, okay, we would like to be an educator, a policeman, or a SOS mother, a caregiver professional. And these were like 80% of the answers. And this is not because to all of them they loved like those professions. In most of the cases, it was really because they were not having any example next to them of people working in other jobs. What we saw, also like face-to-face, when we were bringing together the young people with mentors working in different companies, as the ones that you can see there, they were getting inspired. They were getting like a mentor who could open their views and their expectations or their thinkings on what they could do in the future. So now they were saying, oh, maybe I can be an accountant, or I can be a cooker, for example, or an entrepreneur. While before they were only saying, like, for example, teacher or policeman or caregiver. So this is how we can really like create these support networks with the young people and better support them in becoming independent. So that's where we said, okay, so mentorship is good, but we have a barrier here that is like the geographical distance and also like the limited time that the mentors are having. So how we can scale this program? And this is how YouthLinks was born. We designed an online mentorship program which uses a digital platform to develop young people employability skills. Through the platform, we could develop several skills, but we focused specifically here on employability skills. The program itself is focusing connecting mentors and mentees to create networks and to support and accompany them in order to become independent, leave SOS programs or SOS support, and successfully join the job market in their countries or abroad. This is how we design it. Let's say like in the paper, okay, this is what we are going to do. And the objective is to implement this program, starting by 2 countries and then scaling to 17 countries by 2018. The first platform that we used in order like to implement this project was a platform provided by Facebook that I think that many of you already know because you use it also like in your organizations, which is called Workplace. Through this platform, we were connecting young people among themselves, but also young people with mentors to accompany them, guide them, and coach them in order to integrate the job market. And one of the first feedbacks that we had, it was like good, let's say, in some countries, because young people were saying things that you can see in the slides, so saying, yeah, it really like allow us like to increase our job skills, self-confidence, and integrate the job market. But also, like when we did a more detailed evaluation, we saw that we were facing also like some challenges. So yeah, in some countries, people were quite active. But in most of the countries, or in other countries, let's say, young people were not really confident to participate or to talk in a platform where their comments and their thoughts are going to be seen by many, many people. And they were also feeling more comfortable talking one-to-one to the mentors. They were sending a lot of private messages to the mentors because they did not forcefully wanted to share like their activities or their thoughts with the broader audience. Another thing, another challenge that we identified here, it was like, okay, we can connect mentor and mentee, but a mentor is someone working in a company, let's say, who in most of the cases does not have like a mentorship skills or very professionalized mentorship skill. This person is someone who, of course, wants to volunteer their time, maybe does a super short training on how to be a mentor, and has all the good willingness of the world, of course, like to support vulnerable young people, but they do not have like the teaching skills, let's say in a way, or the mentorship skills to really communicate their message in a sharper way to the young people, attractive, have like outcomes out of the information that this person is sharing. And then also with many partners that were willing to collaborate in the project, they were saying, yeah, but okay, employability skills, but that's, what is it specifically? How we can support them? We can share our CVs, but how we can really support them in developing a CV, because we don't have our own content as a company, for example, focused on employability. And these are some of the challenges that we faced, and that's where we were contacted by Volunteer Vision, and we established this 3-pillar partnership on digital mentorship, composed by SOS, Volunteer Vision, and Aflatun, because we realized, like, through this partnership that we will explain now, which is the role of each one of these agencies, we realized exactly that each of us, we had the expertise on one of the sectors and in one of the things that together, or with the right mix, we are designing like a very good mentorship program. To talk more on detail on the partnership and also on the platform, I will hand over now to Julia.
Thank you very much, Maria, and welcome to everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to be in this very fantastic partnership with SOS, and that we're actually able to launch and pilot such a great project. So perhaps a few words to us and to the program's approach. Volunteer Vision, we stand for innovative software and e-learning content, focusing on one-on-one online mentoring. So we are actually providing different formats, solely focusing on connecting people that under normal circumstances would not have the possibility to be in a one-on-one online mentoring. And this is also a fact that is particularly important to us, that we can actually kind of put together or bring together people that are kind of fitting to each other in terms of their personality and in terms of their skill sharing. So what they need and what they want to share, but especially also on focusing that they can do this although they're not at the same place. And what do we provide for this? Or to achieve this mission, we actually developed a software, a platform that enables digital one-on-one e-learning classrooms with live video chat sessions. You see a screenshot here displayed in the little laptop on that slide. So, and what you see here is our digital conference room that actually kind of is at the end of the whole chain of actually online mentoring, meaning that here mentors and mentees have already registered. They are already trained, matched, and then meet together in this one-on-one online conference room. And what you see here in the middle is the content, our second pillar for what we stand. This content is developed together with SOS. So it's, all of our content is actually specifically focused on the target group that we are approaching. And then on the right top, you see the video chat, which is a WebRTC solution with which we connect mentor and mentee. So it's actually similar to Skype in terms of functionality, only that you don't have to install anything. It's a browser-based platform, which makes it particularly easy to use. And then you have the mentor view here. What makes it very well special in that sense is that we provide our mentors with a very detailed script that they can click through so that they feel secure, that they can solely focus on their mentee, and that no matter how well prepared a mentor is or how good a day he or she had, the session always focuses very much on the content. The third pillar that we have is the service, basically saying that an online mentoring program only works properly if you provide the necessary service meaning that you actually see if everyone is happy with their matches, that you do a live service when they meet, especially for the first time, so that everything works out. As with every software, you have IT challenges, especially when you're connecting people that are not sitting at one place, but are actually, sitting remote. And this is also where the next slide kicks in. So this was our kind of general overview of what we do. The program scope as such says that we match young SOS adults and employees in an online mentorship. This is a specific program for SOS now, and the framework for this is that we spent the last month developing the content, setting the infrastructure up. We actually also relaunched the platform to provide a good platform that you can use worldwide with all the functions that you need. And the pilot consists of 70 employees from Allianz, DHL, Credit Suisse, and J&J, who then kind of enable or offer this program to their employees, who are then able to share their skills online based on the content that we provide. It's 5 mentoring sessions, each consisting of 1 hour, held within a digital one-on-one classroom that I just shown you. You have the e-learning scripts, as I described in our second pillar, developed by experts. Those experts are Aflatoon together with SOS. We always work closely with the experts, actually specifically knowing the target group, so that we can build a curriculum that fits the needs of the young adults that we want to help here. And the mentees are young as adults between 18 and 25 years old that are just aiming or just about to enter the job market and actually start making an independent living. The partners, Maria already introduced, that's Volunteer Vision, that's us, standing for the software and the mentor support, SOS Children, who is of course providing the access and support for all participating SOS mentees. So we are in close contact with the supervisors in the 2 villages where we are piloting this project right now, so Nigeria and Peru. And Aflatoon is the one that mainly supported us designing and creating the e-learning content that the mentor and the mentee both see in the conference room, right? And we can actually move forward.
Yeah, only to add here. Yeah, only to add here to everyone, it's like when I was seeing the challenges that we had in the other using like workplace, it's something that we solve now with this partnership together, because as Julia said, so Volunteer Vision is not only bringing like the digital platform on the game, but they also provide us with all the mentor management services, which comes like from developing the booklet to train the employees to become a mentor, the training for the mentors, the matching service, the follow-up. They are sure that the mentor is connected when it has to be connected and doing the lesson to the young person. And then we have specialized content, which has been developed together in partnership with Aflatoon. And on the top of the content, which is like a PowerPoint if you want, there is also this script, which I feel that is super interesting because it really says, let's say, or guides the mentor through what he or she needs to say in order to effectively deliver the content that has been created, which are the activities that can be proposed to the young person while they are speaking, and also when one session closes, until the next session, there is some kind of homework, and this is reviewed on the next one. So it's not only the thing of the platform, but also all the service which comes around it.
Perfect. Perhaps to do a deep dive into what I've already mentioned, the first part, the program's content, where actually Maria gives a lot of, or can give a lot of input as well. What we always do with our programs and what we do, or what we did here with SOS together, was develop a 5-session curriculum that specifically focuses on the skills that the young SOS adults need. And in session 1, we focus on the big subject of motivation, getting to know each other via the concept of motivation. So actually the mentor kind of goes into the session by asking what motivates you, what motivates me, why is motivation so important, why is motivation sometimes hard. So those are kind of topics, or a very a very good topic to actually get to know each other very well. The session 2 then starts with identifying the core skills of the mentees by kind of looking back into that past experience of like 3 years back, looking at particular situations and then kind of extracting the skills that the mentor can identify together with the mentee. Then as a homework, they actually put those skills and those experiences that they have in a CV, which is then actually proofread by the mentor to then practice a CV mock-up interview in session 3. Session 4 then kind of pretends that the mentee is hired for an internship or for a real job, and then the mentor discusses the first week of work, what is important in terms of social skills at the workplace, how do I communicate with my colleagues, how do I solve conflict situations, etc. And session 5 is then kind of the farewell session if they want to say farewell, and actually developing an own development plan that the mentee can then use to develop any further. And yeah, Maria, anything to add here? Perhaps.
Yeah, so these sessions were developed jointly with or through focus groups, so with the program participants, so with the young people. We identified in a matrix, let's say, model, the abilities that they were more interested in developing. The funny, if you want, thing is that people in Peru, Nigeria, Lithuania, Jordan, etc., they most like 80% of the skills that they wanted to develop were the same. So that really helped us in consolidating 5 sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Then here talking who is the mentee and the mentor of the program. So very quickly, as I said, the mentees are SOS program participants, people who have lost parental care or are at risk of losing the parental care, coming from SOS Peru or Nigeria, because we are on the first stages of the implementation of the program. But of course, the objective is to scale it in as many countries as possible. And they are in the process of becoming self-reliant. So even if they are still under SOS programs, so they are being supported by SOS, they are close to, let's say, of having to become independent.
In terms of the mentors, who are they? They are, of course, first of all, empathetic and understanding, so they are able to carry out a change of perspective. So, for instance, for this pilot, it's particularly important that mentors understand that perhaps the first session takes a bit so that they both connect, that perhaps the mentee doesn't show up the first time or that they are late, so they have to kind of be able to carry out a different, a change of perspective or a different perspective. They are all between 30 and 50 years old. They are not also at different ages, but also at different career stages. They're all equipped in terms of the IT infrastructure that they need. So they have access to a private PC or laptop, headsets, and internet. They're from different companies. So those are 70 employees from 4 companies from 10 different countries. And most of them are in very time-intense careers. Why am I underlining this? Because especially for those employees, our format is just ideal so that they can actually combine it with their career, because it's very time effective. Exactly, so we can move forward. Just to shortly kind of demonstrate the process here. So you might wonder, how do mentor and mentee match? You've already seen the conference room, but what does actually happen before that? Well, both register, mentees as well as the mentors. The SOS supervisors have their own account where they can actually see which one of their mentees is registered, when do they have their sessions, did they actually cancel on it, was there a problem with the password? So they are kind of in charge there together with us. And then the mentors are trained. The mentees are trained or prepared as well. In both countries, the supervisors from SOS actually did kind of a kickoff event, giving an introduction to the program and explaining the mentees how they would register on our platform, and they were prepared for this with our handbooks that we provided to SOS. Both are matched then. This is the process that we are kind of in right now. So we look actually at, we ask in the registration about different hobbies, traits of personality, and then actually look if they're fitting together, so if they, so that we can find a good match, and then both start their sessions in our conference room. So the next steps, overview and first outcomes. Just to show you a quick overview of what actually happened, we've already mentioned it in this presentation, but just to give you a short summary here. So we started in February 2018 with the focus groups. So interviews with SOS and DHL program coordinators were conducted, peer group workshops were done to kind of extract the skills and the needs that the target group have. We then developed the content from March till April. Took us a bit longer with all the kind of the feedback cycles that we had, but basically 5 mentor scripts were developed, including mentee slides, the SOS support webinar and handbook, a mentor webinar, and a CSR workshop training, because we also accompany, of course, the companies, guide them which mentors to choose, how to actually do a call to action. Yeah, and then the next step was the training in May. So we did the how to choose mentor workshops for the CSR teams of J&J, DHL, Allianz. So actually all the clients are now participating. Then the SOS support staff in Peru, Nigeria received their online training and the additional support material. And then the mentors were also trained in 4 different online webinars, partly in English. So part of them, or half of them, were in English and the other half in Spanish. And then the sessions are just about to start now. We started matching by the beginning of last week. The first sessions are conducted this week. It's actually very exciting to all of us to see how this works out. We started with the Spanish cohort in Peru, and the program is also here in Spanish, and Nigeria will start the next week. Yeah, and then perhaps just as a short outlook, of course, we do a project evaluation. Perhaps as a side note here, my co-founder, Zuzka, she wrote her PhD thesis about the business impact of corporate volunteering. So how do mentors develop during such a program? What changed in terms of the participation effects? What changes in terms of their attitude towards the employer? And you can actually see here very nicely across all our programs that not only the mentees develop their self-confidence, their social skills, but also the mentors develop their ability to adapt, to consult others, and to integrate others. And we will also do a final project evaluation in July, and then kind of do a summary and kind of a presentation on all the effects that we had in this pilot, and then present it to our partners in September.
Yeah, so on the top of what Julia said is like we also, like from SOS side, of course, like we do like a short questionnaire to establish the baseline on what is the knowledge on employability that the young people selected for the program have. And then at the end of the different sessions, we do, again, the questionnaire and the evaluation, so we can also measure some immediate, let's say, outcomes. Of course, we in SOS, we also like follow the young people to, in a later stage, measure how many of them have found a job and have integrated the job market. And only a very short note, what we found very interesting also, like out of this partnership, was also like all the evaluation and metrics and indicators that Volunteer Vision was also measuring on the mentor side, because what we were doing until now was only measuring the impact on the young people, which of course is needed. But I think that these 2 ways of measuring, also measuring the other part, which is the mentor and the person who is dedicating their time, it's also very important in this kind of programs. And then for a scale, if I close like this slide, so for a scale, which will happen after the evaluation, so by the end of July, August, we will do the evaluation, and then we will look for further scale on the program. And of course, we look for cooperations here to include more young people, but also mentors and corporates who would like to join this good project.
Exactly, and perhaps to share a short outlook on what this might look like, the evaluations you see here on a smaller screenshot, the mentor perspective and the mentee perspective. So we actually measure ability to adapt, self-confidence values like the leadership skills on the mentor side, the self-confidence, presentation skills, communication skills, but as well as changes in work and attitudes. The mentee perspective, we look at the language skills, we look at the increase in motivation, the learning skills, the interest in the job careers, the awareness of one's own skills. So there is, it's kind of a big survey that we do, and what you see here, this is particularly interesting for the CSR manager. They get their own profile so that they can actually check regularly the testimonials from their mentors, how active they are. So this is kind of a small reporting tool for the corporate CSR managers that they can easily use to check up on their impact that they have with the program. Right, and the call to action, I can only repeat what Maria already said. Of course, we want to scale this program very big. I think it has a wonderful potential to connect a lot of people, hundreds to thousands of people, if you can dream. We are looking for partners, for corporate partners who are willing to participate in this program to enable this for their employees to participate in such a program. So if you feel that this impact mission is the right strategy or the right vision for your CSR portfolio, please contact Maria or me, and we will keep you updated on the scaling plan of the program. So I can only say from my side, thank you very much for listening. And thank you to Maria for such a wonderful cooperation.
Yeah, so the same from our side. So thank you very much, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much, Maria and Julia, for the overview of your program. As mentioned, it was one of my favorite presentations at ICT4D conference, and knowing that you've gone through a couple of iterations and you're still obviously iterating and learning, it's really helpful to learn about some of the challenges you're trying to address, but also solutions that you found to the challenges that you identified during the first phase of the project. There are a number of questions, and Frederick and I will try to group them as much as possible so we can focus on some of the key topics. There are questions about the process, there are questions about private sector, questions about measurement. So let's start first with a set of questions regarding how does this work. So I'll share just a few of them and then let you to answer in any order. So there's a question about the frequency of the 5 mentoring sessions that you described. Also about how does the matching work. Clearly, when you have a small number of mentors and mentees, that can be done manually. In order to scale, there's a question around, are you automating this or doing it manually? Also language. So if you can speak to any language barriers, how you might be overcoming that, specifically for this to work from MENA region, many of the young people don't speak English, they speak Arabic. So how are you thinking about overcoming the language barrier? And then the last question around the process is around mentors. Right now you're working with the private sector, but there was a fantastic question from a teacher in Mosul, Iraq, really highlighting the opportunity for independent professionals who have the skills to potentially participate in a program like this. So can mentors join as independent professionals, not as an organization? So happy to repeat any of these questions, but I just thought I would get them to you as a set so you can tackle them in any order.
Okay, so maybe Julia, can I start by the frequency and the language, and then you jump into the matching, and we can do together the individual mentors. Mm-hmm. So regarding the frequency on how often, so the sessions that we have designed, because I did not mention it before, they lasts for 1 hour. So of course, like this depends on the mentor and mentee interaction and how much on the details they want to go. But they have been designed to last for 1 hour. And how often, it really depends on mentor and mentee, because with the automatic matching that Julia will explain now, the first session is scheduled, but then at the end of the first sessions, both mentor and mentee are asked to agree on the next one. Our recommendation is once per week or twice per week, because it's not only the thing of like getting knowledge or theoretical knowledge, but also building a relationship between the mentor and the mentee. And that happens if you talk to each other, let's say, with like short frequency and not like once per month, what we have seen. Regarding the language, very good question. We, of course, like face this challenge. We can only, one of the parameters, let's say, of the matching, of course, is the language, is the most important one. So what we do is like we ask, let's say, the mentors to indicate which languages do they speak, as well as they can make comments on their cultural background, or if they have lived in other places. We can establish also like this kind of connections based on those ones. That's why we can do cross-border mentorship, but as I also mentioned before, we also do in-country mentorship. Not in the same location, of course, if the two people can meet face-to-face while doing it online. But when they cannot do it because of availability, a schedule of time, or distance, then we also look for local mentors there. So if you want to explain the matching.
Yeah, exactly. I would just jump directly to that. I can only agree with everything that Maria just formulated. So obviously, before we start such a pilot or generally such a program, we always look very specifically on who we want to match. You have to see that the platform is already semi-automized. The matching algorithm works as follows. So when you are a mentor, we ask you after the registration to do an enrollment in the program, and this enrollment consists of different questions that we developed together with the research team. So we ask you about your general working habits, if you are more an extrovert or an introvert, and then we developed an algorithm that puts together different percentages of those answers so that we say this would be the ideal partner, right? So then in our matching algorithm, we have kind of a percentage-based overlapping. So for instance, mentor A and mentee B have a 70% overlapping. Then we have a time component saying, okay, do they have an overlapping of their time preferences that they gave us as well during their enrollment? And if both factors are correct or seem correct to us, we match them. This matching algorithm can be automized actually to a very high extent, but to us it's always important to make kind of still to make a last manual check. But still, you can easily match up to 50, 60 mentorships in 1 hour with this algorithm. So, and of course, we always refine and also even kind of push automation even more here. I mean, the more people we match, the more experiences we collect. And this is also a very important evaluation criteria that we have in this pilot, because each program has its own kind of nuance and detail of matching. So this is always also specific sometimes to the program, how we match.
Yeah, and then regarding the last question, I can take it because it's, we assume that it's from someone who is not working like in a corporate, so it's like either like an individual mentor. So as I said, like the preferred platform that we use in SOS is the one with Volunteer Vision for all these services accompanying, let's say, like the mentor and mentorship services. And this is dedicated, or let's say like focused for foundation, corporates, etc., where we wanted to involve like a big number of mentors. For individual mentors or teachers who are connected now in the call, we also have, as I mentioned before, we also use Workplace platform. in order like to connect with young people, but this we dedicated for really people, individual people who are teachers and are already semi-professionalized on the mentorship.
Well, thank you very much, both of you. This is most inspiring, and I understand you're being careful with your selection of mentors or organizations and things like that to kind of get this first pilot out of the way. I can't wait for you to scale this with thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. But when you started out identifying the organizations you're working with right now, how did you pick them? How did you approach those corporations, and what was some of the motivations for the corporations to actually get in the game?
Okay, so I can say like how we approach them, and then Julia is much better place also like to say the motivation that they have. So the approach right now with the ones that you already saw that are participating in the program, DHL, Allianz, and Johnson & Johnson, for example, these three corporations were already partnering in our face-to-face program that we have in order to support young people around the globe. But they were facing the challenges that I mentioned before, so they had like very big headquarters, for example, in Europe, and they wanted, the coworkers wanted to support people in the country, but also outside the country. And sometimes it was happening, but we realized that it was not effective. So, for example, organizing one trip to one country, like to put together mentors and mentees or people working in companies with the program participants, it's really not the most cost efficient and outcome efficient way that we can do it. So in order like to cross this border, that's where like the digital platform came into the game, let's say. And so far, then, like I can say that they are really happy with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perhaps to add just a few notes here, and to give you a bit more background information, Suska and I, we used to work for one of the biggest physical corporate volunteering programs in Germany, and we always experienced when working together with the not mentors, but actually the volunteers from different companies, that they were all very enthusiastic and very motivated, but they it took quite a lot of time from them. It was always an issue that they had to draw, because it was a physical volunteering, to drive there, to prepare before that. So it was actually consuming a lot of their time. And back then we actually thought, why isn't there a digital volunteering program that on the one hand connects people that normally would never meet, that on the other also is actually closer to the challenges of today, to the lack of time that everyone, especially of the working population, has. So why not take volunteering digital? So this was actually the motivation behind it. And for the corporates, I mean, besides that, apart from the fact that, of course, their employees' time is very valuable to them, there's also another factor. A lot of companies actually underestimate what it takes to build an impactful, very well-serviced volunteering program. And most of them are very thankful that they can work together with us, we are kind of the man in the middle between such a big and very impactful corporate NGO like SOS, that not only kind of, provide the channel to the mentees, but also take care of everything else. I mean, just to give you an idea, in this pilot of 70 mentors, and right now there are 20 matched, we start in cohorts. It is pretty normal that you get up to 20, 30 emails at least a day with mentors asking for help in the IT check, asking for help in kind of getting the content explained. So even with a program that is very automized and very well explained, there is always the need for service on both sides, because otherwise, you don't really have a program that serves both impact dimensions, the impact for the company and the impact for the mentees. And those two dimensions, or those explanations, are actually the main reason for the corporates to take part in our programs.
Yeah, I can just imagine that, very large organizations that are trying also to hire millennials and young people these days that are looking beyond the mission of the employer themselves, and also looking at what is it the employer is doing to make the world a better place. A solution like this puts less pressure on the organization itself to create something from scratch, and also makes it easy for people that are motivated to do that type of work to feel that they're making a difference. Just a couple of two corporate type of follow-up questions, then I'll let Leila jump in again. First of all, is there a cost to the enterprises to use this platform, or who pays for this? And then when you select these volunteers or these mentees, mentor peers today, are they typically in the same country, or I think maybe you mentioned this, but I didn't quite pick up on to what extent things are in the same country, same language, versus how many of them are across borders and maybe different languages.
So I would start with the last question. Mentor and mentee. I mean, the project that we have with SOS is one of our biggest and most prestigious programs, and also one of our most ambitious, because here actually the mentors and the mentees can sit in one country or on the same continent, but they can also be very international. So for instance, I'm matching right now mentors from India with mentees from Nigeria. So there is actually no limit to this, and the curriculum actually, we paid attention when developing the curriculum that it's very universal, right? So that it focuses on social skills that are universal, where you can actually talk about or discuss about too. This was also a need that the mentees had, that they want to have an intercultural exchange. So it's actually, there is no limit in such that the mentors and mentees have to be in the same country. In some programs, we have, for instance, refugee programs that focus solely on the German language, for instance. Here it is vital that mentor and mentee sit in one country, because it's just the demand of the program as such. But here for SOS, we said we want to build a truly universal program. In terms of the cost, that really varies along, kind of the service that we provide. How much interaction we need with SOS during the pilot. So we always conduct a pilot to see what costs we have on both sides. So what does it take SOS to kind of guarantee the infrastructure that we need, to follow up on the supervisors. And actually, we cannot say right now how much it will be. It varies very much. It varies on the fact how long the program is, how many sessions are there, which service package is provided, how big the evaluation analysis will be in the end. So what actually are the corporates demanding in terms of impact analysis? So we will have more information on this as soon as the pilot is over, probably by the end, kind of in early fall. But then we will have calculated everything.
Great, thanks so much, Julia. And let's make sure to share that information with the organizations that might be interested in leveraging your platform, because cost and fundraising to cover the expenses is an important part of planning for the programs. We only have 1 minute, and I do want to come back in that minute to the questions related to one of the goals of the program, which is employability. So I'll again bundle a couple of questions, and you can just pick one or two or both of them to answer. How do you measure mentee employability skills after this program has finished for a particular job market? Also, are you connecting youth with jobs after the mentoring sessions have finished? And then one question related to the materials around employability. Can you share any of the materials you've developed for teaching employability skills? So over to both of you, and then we'll close.
Okay, so I can take like the first part of the measurement if you want, and then Julia can complement here. But regarding the measurement, so we develop it like in a log frame, let's say, with a theory of change that we have in SOS. And then we have like a broader theory of change for youth independence and self-reliance, and then from there we develop the log frame, but it's the country itself that also develops the log frame based on their local context, and we measure specific skills development just after the sessions. And then we also have like these people as part or integrating like our database, so we can X time later to continue measuring if this specific action has had like an impact. And the ultimate goal, of course, is integration of the job market. Related to the connection with the job opportunities, yes, with these specific partners, because as I said, this is the digital option of a broader program that is called Youth Can that we implement in SOS. And then companies, in this case, for example, DHL can offer or sometimes offers job opportunities, but this really depends also of the local agencies or local representations of the companies in country. Because what we don't do is like to offer like cross-border internships when we can offer them in country.
Okay. Perhaps to add to Maria's comment, what is important to note, of course, digital mentoring can never be as intense and personal as a physical volunteering, right? But so we are always embedded in the ideal case. We are always embedded in other programs, and SOS has a perfect job orientation program with Youth Can and YouthLinks, so we are kind of the perfect add-on to this program. So that it's also ensured that we are not the only one providing 5 sessions of mentoring and then the mentee is on its own again. This is not the case here, and this is also very important to us, right? And this is also very important to the mentors. They ask me quite a lot if this is the only offer that the mentees get. So this is just important for me to note that SOS has a very great system, a great program structure where we are embedded with this digital mentoring structure. And as another note on the content, there was the question if we can share some content. We have, I mean, first of all, we have to test it right now. This is the most important to us. And then we will evaluate with SOS and probably also summarize our findings and how well the content actually related to the needs of the mentees. So right now, no, we can unfortunately not share the content right away. Reason one is, as I said, we need to evaluate it first. And then we also, in a second step, need to see, as this is a cooperation between Volunteer Vision and SOS, we kind of first have to decide how to scale the project, in what framework, and if we can partly open it. So there is still this, we haven't actually kind of finalized a decision on this here, but first of all, focus on the project to be successful and on the cooperation.
Yeah, fully understand that, Julia and Maria, and as mentioned up front, this is something that you're currently piloting, and you are very gracious to actually share your current learnings and the approach, and very much grateful for that. Fantastic presentation. There's so many more questions, and I encourage all of you to follow up directly with Julia and Maria if you have any additional questions. We'll be sharing the recording for this webinar. And if you sign up for the task force, you'll be receiving invitations to future webinars. We're planning a couple of fantastic webinars, one with Kiva about their World Refugee Fund for refugee entrepreneurs, another one with South New Hampshire University around education and internships, and then also with Mercy Corps and their partners around Signpost, which is around connectivity. So a lot coming up. Do sign up for the task force, and also share with us your feedback on this specific webinar. Thanks again, and thank you, Maria and Julia. Over to you, Frederick.
Thank you.
Thank you, both of you. And again, much appreciated if everybody answers the webinar satisfaction poll. Have a great day, great rest of your day, everyone. We will be back in touch very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.